Hello, everybody. Welcome to another Comic Source Comic Boom collaboration. This is your DC Spotlight for the week of May 9th, 2023. I thought it was an excellent week of books this week. Had some continuing favorites, had some debuts, and I thought overall it was pretty strong. What do you think, Rocky?
Yes, and it's. I thought it was particularly strong for a certain wielder of a Green Lantern ring. So yeah, I thought it was. I enjoyed this week. It was well. Again, it was a little bit hit. You know, there's going to be some stinkers. I'm not going to lie, but I was generally pleased. Some pleasant surprises. Yes.
All right, well, let's not waste any time. Let's dive right in. We got about 10, 11 books to talk about. Kicking off with Batman Incorporated number 8. This is Joker Incorporated Part 1. We knew it was coming. It's been teased by writer Ed Brisson for a little bit. John Timms is the artist, Rex Locus on colors, Clayton Cowell on letters. We all know how I feel about Joker. There's no need for me to go into that. But I will say, like, when it comes to the characterization of the Joker himself, you know, as much as I am not a fan of reading Joker stories, if I have to read Joker stories, this is the Joker that I like. This is a Joker that's interesting. I talked the last time about how with The Man Who Stopped Laughing, the Matthew Rosenberg series, about how the Joker could go from one of my least favorite characters to maybe one of my favorite because there's potential for him to be so interesting with different variations and the mystery of that and to have it all explained and laid out or what have you. Ed Brisson is taking what's already there, forgetting about all the nonsense of multiple Jokers and just giving me the Joker that I find sort of the most authentic, right? Like he's not a physical specimen. He's not going to go toe-to-toe with Batman. I mean, that's always one of the biggest beefs I have with when people write the Joker and he's physically able to stand up to Batman and fight hand-to-hand combat. I mean, that's not what Ed Brisson is doing here. Ed Brisson is giving us a Joker who's a puppet master. He's a Svengali, right? Like he's pulling the strings. He's setting up threats, not just for Batman, but for all the Batmen of Batman Incorporated. Because this whole idea, this whole premise is, well, a Batman needs a Joker. And if you're going to have Batman Incorporated, then you need Joker Incorporated. You need Jokers around the world to stand up to these Batmen, to be their foils, to be their nemesis, to be their antithesis, however you want to put it. So that's interesting. And that seems like something a Joker would do, right? The old school Joker of my childhood that I read, you know, not this newfangled, seemingly superpowered Joker. Like this is a Joker that's more about setting things up and coming up with these elaborate plans where he's thought 10 steps ahead. And I thought it really worked. The John T. was solid. If I have any complaint or any nitpick about Batman Incorporated, there are so many characters. But I'll give Ed credit. I don't know if he's, you know, listening to our reviews or just listening to feedback from fans. I noticed that the members of Batman Incorporated call each other by name a lot more than they did in the early years. They're saying, hey, Knight, hey, Hero, hey, Grey Wolf, what have you. So, you know, a chance for people to kind of learn who these characters are. Still, in terms of characterization, it's slow going to really have a handle or kind of a touch point or relatability to these characters because there are so many. And I have to imagine it's a real challenge for Ed to give us character arcs, give us growth for these characters because there are so many. When you talk about a team book, something like, I don't know, Justice League or the Avengers, those are well-established characters, right? Most of them that have had their own titles. So you kind of know going in who they are. Something like the new X-Men back in the day is a real good example where that wasn't the case, right? Like Chris Claremont came on with issue 98. They stopped doing reprints. They brought in these new characters, most of whom were brand new. Wolverine obviously had showed up before. Sunfire had showed up before, what have you. But, you know, Storm, Nightcrawler, Colossus, these were new characters. And it was up to Chris Claremont to show some growth with those characters. There's a huge difference, right? Like art back then wasn't as detailed as now. So you had more panels per page. And also go back and look at those books. Go back and look at those early Claremont Cockrum or Claremont Byrne issues of X-Men. And you just see walls of text. And that's one of the things I complained about back then, was that Claremont was so wordy. But he needed to do that in order to establish characterization. You can't make comics like that anymore. And so, again, it's a real challenge for Ed, I think, to give us relatability, give us characterization. It's coming, but it's coming very slowly. And I wonder if in the long run that might hurt this title a little bit. So anyway, what did you think overall, Rocky?
I thought that this was a little bit of a step backwards in my opinion. I didn't mind it, but I thought Joker Incorporated it just seems like such a cliche idea. Although I'd be lying if I said it doesn't make some degree of sense given the Joker's mentality. If Batman's going to have the audacity to have a bunch of as Joker describes, I mean, Joker actually, he says it. He goes, he says, if hearing that Batman was trying to corner the market on lending out his likeness to goofballs around the globe gave me the hell of an idea. And I can't help but think that a lot of the characters of Batman Incorporated do kind of look like goofballs. They all look like wannabe Batmans. They really actually do look like that in many ways. And don't get me wrong, I don't mind, I like Batman Incorporated, but I can see the Joker maybe being a little bit frustrated with it. If you're going to have your day in the sun, why not me too? Now, having said that, there are a lot of characters in this comic, and I still think that there's way too many. There's too many characters, and this has more characters than I always think the Justice League should have 7 characters. This just has just too many, and I still find myself having to go back and double check. And this is I read this issue 3 times, and I did have to Google again to find these characters. As a matter of fact, these characters, I even find it difficult when I go onto the Wikipedia page because a lot of these characters are so new that I still have to double check myself. But in any event, we know that Ghostmaker and El Gacho, these characters, Ghostmaker and El Gacho are scolding the Batman of China, or rather, Ghostmaker is, because he failed to stop his sister. His sister El Paco defeated him last issue, and ultimately, Ghostmaker basically was very hard on the Batman of China, saying, let us handle this. Go, we're taking you off the board. And Ghostmaker and El Gacho go, and they end up confronting the Joker by the end of the issue. In the meantime, in between that, Anzor and Benzel, who are the Grey Wolf and Knight, it's revealed that they have a romantic relationship that Ghostmaker probably knows about, because Ghostmaker seems to know everything. But Grey Wolf and Knight seem to be romantically attracted to each other and involved. And Grey Wolf reveals that he's thinking of quitting the team and going back to Chechnya, his home country of Chechnya. But in the meantime, before they can continue their date, they get called out by Ghostmaker because various members of Joker Incorporated are engaging in terrorist attacks around the globe. That's me oversimplifying things. In the meantime, we also know that the chief of Man-Bats was shot by Dusty Bronco, who was one of the members of Joker Incorporated at the end of last issue. And Chief of Man-Bats, his sidekick, Raven Red, is by his bedside in the hospital, along with Gyro and Clown Hunter, who are also there. And Raven Red vows revenge against Dusty Bronco for what happened to Chief of Man-Bats. And Night Runner is in Paris, France, where he confronts Charles de Gaulle, who I think is another member of Joker Incorporated. And he's got his, instead of Cirque du Soleil, he's got his Cirque de la Mort, or Circus of Death. And then we've got the Dark Ranger in Australia and Wingman, both of which were suspended by Ghostmaker last issue. And they moved to help Night Runner, who Night Runner's calling for help because he's alone against Charles de Gaulle in Paris, but Dark Ranger and Wingman end up having to deal with their own terrorist attack in Melbourne, Australia. So we have all these moving parts to address, and all this appears to be minions of the Joker causing all this chaos. And there's a lot of moving parts here. And if you're up for the challenge, or maybe just a little bit more on the ball than me, maybe you don't have to read it 3 times. I'm glad I did. Ed Brisson is doing he's doing a reasonably good job, because I got to admit, it's kind of hard. While I can get frustrated with him, I can imagine it's very hard to to sort of manage all these players, but he does do it. I would still really appreciate some help. I really think there's no excuse. You could still have a cover page at the beginning that has all these talking heads on the sides. I mean, go traditional DC. It's down to the DCU. Harken back to a traditional age. Do that. Have the heads on both sides of the page with their names underneath at the opening page, with the credits on the opening page instead of the middle of the book. I mean, this is very basic creative ways of doing this, which I'm so surprised they don't use for these big books. But Ed Brisson, I'm curious as to where this is going, although I can imagine it's very interesting that the Joker is confronting that Ghostmaker's part of this. I would think that if the Joker's doing this, I would think the Joker might be a little frustrated or pissed off that he has to deal with Ghostmaker. Because Ghostmaker, I wonder what the Joker actually thinks about Ghostmaker. That's what I'm curious about. We know that Joker has an obsession with Batman. What does Ghostmaker really think? Or pardon me, what does Joker really think about Ghostmaker? Does he think that Ghostmaker is just a wannabe Batman too, or just a goofy ripoff of Batman? What does he actually think of Ghostmaker? I'd be really curious. And will Ghostmaker move to try to kill the Joker? Because we've got hints of the Ghostmaker's predisposition to want to use lethal force in previous issues. So I got a lot of interesting questions here, and all in all, not a bad comic.
Yeah, 100%. It seems like we both kind of have the same complaint about it, though. But it's sort of inherent in the premise, right? There's going to be a lot of characters, so just kind of have to grin and get through it. So, well, you mentioned this one in the lead up, Green Lantern #1, the debut of Jeremy Adams on the character as the writer, art by Zermanico, colors by Romulo Fajardo Jr., and letters by Dave Sharp. What'd you think?
Well, we got. I know what I wanted for Green Lantern, and I have to say that when I was at the Calgary Expo, I felt very lucky. Both Trevor and Trevor Lankiewicz, the writer and creator of Area 51 Helix Project, him and I was there promoting his comic, helping him promote that. I had a great time at the Calgary Expo, and Jeremy Adams was there, and Jeremy Adams joined us for supper one night, and we had a great time, and he talked about the joys and the ups and downs of and his love for DC Comics and the love for these characters, and I can tell you that Jeremy Adams, who's very nervous about the reception of how people might view this Green Lantern. He's very nervous. He wants people to love this opening issue. And I told him that I'd already read it at that time, because we get these, as you know, obviously for those listening, Jason and I, we get preview copies. And I mean, I love this. And the reason why I love it is, number one, the art's fantastic. Zermanico on the art is fantastic. Fajardo Jr.'s colors are amazing. And it just, it really does. The colors just really pop off the page. And even the opening, there's an opening sequence here where Green Lantern rescues some miners that are trapped. And, we know that he's back on Earth. And then we almost got this opening scroll. And I couldn't help but think of Star Wars when I saw the scroll here, even though it's not technically a scroll. Like in Star Wars, you got that opening scroll sort of explaining what's happening. The Green Lantern Corps is always like the Star Wars of the DC universe. And, it is a time of radical change in the galaxy. I mean, it starts off sounding like Star Wars, and the Guardians of Oa have disappeared, and in their absence, the United Planets have seized control of the Green Lantern Corps. I mean, I love that Jeremy Adams is explaining everything up front, because one of the things that Jeremy Adams was challenged with was the ending of Jeffrey Thorne's Green Lantern run, which left a lot of change in the Green Lantern universe. The United Planets were essentially in control of. There were no more Guardians. The Green Lantern, the United Planets had more of a role with respect to the Green Lantern Corps, and we had a sort of a kind of a complicated dual ending for John Stewart. There's technically two of them, one in our galaxy and one in the Dark Sector, and it was complicated. And so we got Philip Kennedy Johnson at the backup of this writing John Stewart story, and we got Jeremy Adams here. Thankfully, Jeremy Adams keeps it simple and very grounded. This is Hal Jordan returning to Earth. We get a flashback of 1 month. Hal Jordan has been on on Earth for 1 month. It takes him 1 month to build up enough, I guess, nerve to contact Carol Ferris. It's very much, I got very much kind of like a Top Gun feel to it, which I love. It's Hal Jordan. He's returning. He's a test pilot. Carol Ferris is, there's a lot of romantic and sexual tension between the two of them. Carol Ferris she has a fiance, which she sort of flaunts and tells him, but you could tell she's she's still attracted to Hal Jordan, and she's upset with herself that she finds Hal Jordan so damn attractive. So you could tell there's romantic tension there. There's humor there. I like that Jeremy Adams keeps it simple. He even references Carol Ferris's Zamoran background with the Star Sapphires, but he just mentions it. He keeps things simple. He keeps this character driven, and that's what I think is going to be very attractive to new readers, and especially, dare I say, Top Gun. I mean, this has a Top Gun feel to it as well. Even though there's a scene that's reminiscent of Top Gun that might seem a little bit tropey. With Hal Jordan sort of doing the test run on as a fighter pilot, but it ends up being that it was all it's all in sort of like computer generated test run and through drones and what have you. But the art is fantastic. And there's one great scene where a goat, these jets fly across this mountaintop, and they're flying so fast that the goat flies right off to the end of the top of the cliff. And it's just fantastic. Exarmonico's art is just really, really, it's just frankly excellent. And you get a sense of the energy and the power and the speed and just you get a sense that this is a Top Gun type of story. And I was just impressed. And Hal Jordan, at one point the month before he confronts Carol Ferris, he ends up driving an old red pickup truck into Coast City because there's a guy there by the name of Steel Fury who's stolen some Manhunter tech, and instead of using his Green Lantern ring to fly to Coast City, he drives his old pickup truck. He's only got $50 to his name. Hal Jordan he's not even clear why he's on Earth or why he came back, other than the fact that Hal Jordan always is he's always been defiant of the Guardians, and now he's defiant of the United Planets. The United Planets said Earth is cut off from the rest of the rest of the Green Lantern Corps. It's persona non grata. No member of the Green Lantern Corps can be in Sector 2814 where Earth is located. Well, Hal Jordan basically says, screw you. And so he's going to go, and not only is he going to be in that sector, but he's going to make his home. He's going to go back home to Earth. And so this issue, I mean, what I love about it is that it ends, so many questions arise. Why did Hal Jordan specifically come back to Earth in defiance of the United Planets directive? Why did the United Planets even quarantine Earth in the first place? Why is Sinestro in a bar on Earth near Coast City? What the hell is Sinestro doing here? Does Hal have access to a power battery? How are his ring powered? Who is Carol Ferris's fiance? We don't know this. What will the United Planets do when they find out that Hal Jordan has defied their order? So there's so much here to love about this Hal Jordan story, just whetting the appetite, pulling us into this story. It's very accessible. It's easy to understand. You don't need to know all the riffraff of the Green Lantern convoluted history that Jeffrey Thorne brought us. This is just going back to basics, and I love it. And I'm really interested to hear what you have to say about it before we talk about the John Stewart story, which was the backup by Philip Kennedy Johnson.
Yeah, so a couple things. Said boyfriend, don't know fiance. Maybe that's something that Jeremy Adams said when you talked to him. The other thing is that I don't think Hal has a ring. He doesn't have power when he shows up. When he goes and asks Carol for a job, when he's sitting on top of his trailer looking up at the stars, he's not Green Lantern. He doesn't have any power. It's not until the guy with the Manhunter armor fires his energy at him. He talked about using his truck and driving to Coast City instead of flying because he doesn't have a ring. He doesn't have a battery. He's banished, and he decided to go back home, in defiance of the United Planets, like you said. But it's when the Manhunter fires the energy at him and he seems to absorb it, then seems to be able to form a ring. So my guess, and it's only a guess, I haven't talked to Jeremy about any story points, is he's going to turn that Manhunter armor into a battery. My guess. So, but you're right. I guess you're right. At the end, it says next a plane explosion, demolition team strikes and meet Carol's fiance. Yeah, so he is a fiance. She called him boyfriend to Hal when they spoke earlier. So yeah, there's a lot of questions here. I agree with you. A little bit of a Top Gun vibe, a little bit of a sort of classic um, vibe of Green Lantern before. You said Jeffrey Thorne. I mean, a lot of people love the Geoff Johns run. They'll cite that as their favorite Green Lantern run of all time. And it certainly is cosmic and it's huge in scope. Um, but back in the day, excuse me, a lot of the Green Lantern stories from my favorite era were on Earth. It wasn't Hal, fighting these intergalactic aliens and stopping the universe from ending. He was on Earth and he was fighting like Blackhand or Hector Hammond or the Javelin. And those were fun stories. It didn't have to be, Green Lantern Space Cop. We've gotten a lot of Green Lantern Space Cop over the last, God, almost 2 decades now. So I'm sort of ready for, more grounded story that doesn't have a Green Lantern family feel. We've talked recently about how DC books seem to everything's a family. It's the Batman family. It's the Superman family. I'm ready for just a Hal Jordan book focused on Hal Jordan, focused on, whether it's Hal and Carol and that dynamic relationship, which, obviously if she has a fiance, there's going to be, a mess there. And just Hal being Hal and some actual characterization of Hal rather than he's Green Lantern first and he's Hal Jordan second. I kind of wouldn't mind seeing 50-50. I'm not saying he's got to be Hal more than Green Lantern. That might get boring, to be honest. But Hal is my favorite Green Lantern, always has been. So for me, this feels very classic and a little bit familiar, but with plenty of new elements. And the art completely blew me away. Zermanico did a fantastic job. So yeah, I'm all in on this. There's some humor, and there's just, like I said, a classic feel. Which when you consider the writer, it's not really a surprise. Kind of the tone of the book.
Yeah.
And you didn't mention anything about the covers, although you did mention Sinestro. And what the heck Sinestro doing sitting in a bar wearing like a leather jacket with a hood on it. That's my favorite cover. There's some fantastic covers here. And that's my favorite cover as well. So, yeah, I can't say anything bad about this comic. I really, really loved it as a Green Lantern fan, and Hal, as I said, is my Green Lantern, and that's as opposed to Flash, where Barry Allen is what I would consider my favorite Flash, and Jeremy gave us a fantastic Wally West, and I had every confidence in Jeremy and his ability because of how much he loves these characters, how invested he is, that he would give us a great story, and yeah, right from the first issue, that's 100% the case. This is just, it feels like Hal Jordan. It feels like a Green Lantern comic from my favorite run, which a lot of that was written. God, I'm trying to remember who the writer was. It was Dave Gibbons, Len Wein. So we're talking about like maybe issue 179, 180, somewhere in that range, up to almost 200. That's where Hal eventually quits. It's where we see John Stewart for the first time. We see Guy Gardner reappear, and that was just a fantastic era. And I had that was Hal being Hal, and a lot of characterization of Hal because, as I said, he quit the Corps for a lot of the reasons I was just talking about. He was tired of the Guardians to do and never getting a chance to be on Earth. So in that way, this kind of mirrors that, right? Like he's back on Earth.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think that you hinted at it, but yeah, maybe his ring was depowered because he did drive the truck into the city to fight Steel Fury, and then he must have powered up his ring from the Manhunter suit or something.
Yeah, and then goes and rescues the miners. Carol sees that on TV. Then he goes and talks.
So okay, yeah. Thank you for that. I didn't quite piece all that together until you stated that. So
I was wondering the same thing. I'm like, why is he driving to the why is he driving? And when the cop is telling him, "Who are you? Get out of here! Get out of here!" Why aren't you like, "I'm Green Lantern"? Transform. But he doesn't. It's not until he gets fired upon by the Manhunter. So
Yeah.
Anyway, fantastic job. Let's move on. Danger Street number 6 is up next. Dingbats of Danger Street, Chapter 6, Book 6, whatever you want to say. Tom King is the writer, Jorge Fornes on art,
Did
Dave
you
Stewart
want to
on.
talk about PKJ, the backup, Green
Oh,
Lantern?
that's right. Yeah, go ahead. Talk about the backup in Green Lantern. I totally forgot about that. Yeah, I closed it. Let me reopen it while you talk about it.
Yeah, well, the backup with PKG deals with John Stewart, and it appears that it's going to be John Stewart on the John Stewart of that we know and love in our universe. It's going to be dealing with the story of a Green Lantern Corps from another universe and another planet, or another universe and another Earth, which is uh, uh, kind of a little bit throws me off a little bit, to be honest. But it's John Stewart in another universe and another time. We're shown a young Guy Gardner is being trained by some other Green Lantern Corps member, and they're fighting the Revenant Queen. And it's the Revenant Queen.
Guy Gardner's the old guy. The old guy's Guy Gardner.
Is it? Well, how come the young guy looks like Guy Gardner then?
No, the old guy. The old guy. See, has got the orange hair, and especially if you look at the one where he says, "Now charge your ring on the Eternal Watchfire." Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. All right. Yeah, I missed that. That wasn't. Yeah. Okay. So it's an older Guy Gardner at some point, another time, I guess another future. Oh, okay. Yeah. I guess that does look right. I'm not really sure then. And he's a new Green Lantern. I'm not sure what his name is. There's the new Green.
They call him. I thought they said his name. I mean, he says Shepherd at one point. I think his name is Shepherd. Yeah, I think so.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah. In any event, it's kind of. To be honest, I was a little bit confused by it. Because we have John Stewart on our Earth, and now we've got Green Lantern Corps in another universe and another time. And I guess, like you said, it's an older Guy Gardner who looks to be mortally wounded, and then another guy who looks like Guy Gardner but doesn't have a name. Again, I was a little bit disappointed with it, if I'm brutally honest. And the Rise of the Revenant Queen I'm not really sure. This feels, if I didn't know better, I thought it was maybe written by Geoffrey Thorne, to be honest, because it sort of seems like the same old, let's go off into different multiverses and everything else. So but this Revenant Queen is looking for the builder and the guardian of John Stewart. So I'm not, at some point, I understand this might overlap with Jeremy Adams' story. Jeremy Adams has sung the praises of PKJ. He knows where Philip Kennedy Johnson is going to be taking this story. And so on that basis of that, I'll trust in what Jeremy Adams is saying, because he knows where this story is headed. But the art's fantastic. The art by Montos Art is amazing with PKJ. I just don't know where it's going, and I'm not really sure what's going to happen when there's an overlap into our universe where it's going to be headed. But I'm prepared to have a lot of faith in PKJ, and so there's not enough pages for me to go on here. And obviously, what the hell do I know? I apparently have been confused about two major plot points in both these stories. So why don't you enlighten me? What do you think about the backup?
Yeah, interesting. I mean, the first few pages with John Stewart felt like a little bit of a throwaway to me. We know that PKJ has a 6-issue John Stewart miniseries coming up at some point. And Geoffrey Thorne obviously made John Stewart immensely powerful. So where John Stewart will be going forward, we just don't know. It's so interesting. John's in a strange place, right? Because for a lot of people, he is their Green Lantern, like Hal Jordan is mine, because that's the first Green Lantern they were exposed to on the Justice League cartoon, Justice League Unlimited. So I wish that DC would establish a baseline for him, so to speak, and kind of give him a chance to just be who he is without, elevating him to godhood or yanking him in this direction, dark sector this and whatever. Just give us like a solid baseline of just John Stewart, right? Because it's sort of the same problem I was talking about with that whole family idea, and John Stewart being military and natural born leader and blah blah blah. And there's so many Green Lanterns, whether it be Hal Jordan or Guy Gardner or John Stewart or Simon Baz or Jessica Cruz, or those are just the Earthbound ones, right? Or Earthborn ones. And you start talking about Kilowog and Salak and just it goes on and on and on, and people like these characters and they want to see them, and I think there's a temptation for the writers to play with them, but again, it becomes less special when you have so many. So showcasing John's leadership and having him as leader of the entire Corps after the Guardians left, it says a lot about who John Stewart is and his importance as a Lantern and what have you. But again, I think getting back to the basics, getting back to the roots of who the character is that's what interests me the most. So with what we get in these first couple pages of talking to his mother and saying, a lot's happened, I need time, I'm here, I'm home, what comes next, I'm not sure. Maybe that's PKJ planting the seeds for that. I guess we'll have to wait and see. And then as far as the jumping to another universe, another time with the old Guy Gardner, first of all, the Montas art, like you said, is it's not my favorite style of art because it's not really clean, but it suits the story and the tone and this revenant queen who's sort of the villain of the piece so well. It's hard not to say that it's the art is chosen perfectly for this project. And the colors by Adriana Lucas are solid, and great letters by Dave Sharp as well. So the whole creative team really did a fantastic job. I agree with you, Rocky. We needed some more pages for things to be a little more clear, but it is really interesting seeing this older Guy Gardner who's not just a total tool, training this guy. I do believe his name is Shepard, because at one point he says, Shepard, if those things extinguish the Watchfire, everything in the universe will go dark. You can't let that happen. So, and he says, Kyle Rayner sent you to me because he saw something in you. So this Shepard character may be somebody that's of importance to the story. I guess we'll have to wait and see. But I thought Montas did a great job of giving us an older looking Gardner. I felt he was recognizable as Guy Gardner right away. Longer hair, plenty of gray, has the beard, but still has that trademark orange hair. So
yeah, I was completely thrown by the younger looking kid that looked like Guy Gardner, and obviously that's what Kyle Rayner saw in the guy. He probably reminded him of a young Guy Gardner. That's why he sent Shepard there. I'm sure that's why he sent him.
Yeah, I didn't really think he looked like Guy Gardner. His hair is more red than orange, and it's like spiky as opposed to Guy. Always had either the short.
But this is a different universe, though, right? It's a different universe. So I'm just thinking. That's why I was thinking, well, different universe, different variations on the character. But no, straight up, the older guy even has Guy Gardner's patented costume, the same stylist suit. Like I just plain missed it. I was thinking something different when I was reading it. I saw a different universe, and I wasn't even thinking about mainstream. So, but it's very close to mainstream styles and everything else. So, but I'm actually more interested about where it might be going now that we're talking about it than I was when I initially read it. So, we'll see.
Yeah, here's the other part of it is that PKJ he's a world builder, right? Like he builds big stuff, and so I'm sure he has huge ideas, and so. Again, there's limited pages here, and so we're kind of thrown right in the middle. He's not getting a chance to sort of build up to it slowly. He just doesn't have the room or the space for it. So I'm sure it'll all be explained in time. And like you said, that you have faith in him. I do as well. I think that this will end up being really good. But it's just a matter of, giving him the space that he needs. So, and who knows? I mean, 6 issues doesn't sound like enough space either, for that matter. So anyway, getting back to the Dingbats of Danger Street. As I said, Tom King's the writer, Jorge Fornes on art, Dave Stewart on colors, Clayton Cowell on letters. This entire issue is narrated by the Dr. Fate helmet. Where we get that flowery. I can't even talk. We get that flowery speech, and this idea of it as a fairy tale with princes and princesses and ogres and dragons and monsters and what have you. And so this issue really brings that tone back really, really well. And it continues to be just a fascinating story. And it's 100% testament to the fact that you can tell an interesting story with any character. If the story's good, the fact that these characters are less well known won't matter. The fact that it's the Dingbats of Danger Street or the Outsiders, and not the Outsiders from Batman fame, but the original Outsiders show up here, which kind of misfits, mutants and what have you, or the Green Team as bad guys, or Travis Morgan Warlord. Like this story, the fact, and I keep saying it, the fact that Tom King has taken all these obscure characters and woven a tale that has really become a page turner is fascinating to me. The motivations, the characterization, and again, going back to that vocabulary of the Dr. Fate helmet narrating the story. I mean, Lady Cop is interesting. Lady Cop has moments, and she's in like one or two comics in her entire existence. I mean, that is fantastic writing. And speaking of the perfect artist on the perfect project, Jorge Fornes with his somewhat grounded and realistic style gives us fantastic art here. And for anybody who thinks that he can only draw like Batman or crime noir type stuff that's really street level, man, take a look at the pages where he's drawing Darkseid or Highfather or the worlds of Apocalypse and New Genesis. The guy is just uber talented. So I'm so enjoying this. I look forward to these issues every time, and they don't disappoint. I'm just really curious to see how all this comes together in the end, because it definitely has that feel, right, of all of these separate plot threads that seemed so far from each other to begin with in the first few issues. They already feel so much more connected now, and it's all going to come together in the end, and I'm sure it's going to be satisfying. I can't wait to see and experience that. So what were your thoughts on the issue?
Things are continuing to build because, as you said, the central conceit of this Danger Street series is taking all these first issue specials from the 70s with these ridiculously crazy characters that went nowhere, and all these series that were canceled, and orchestrating one story, one dare I say interesting story about how they all intersect. And Tom King continues to impress me with his characterization in this issue, with his use of dialogue in this issue, how he's actually creating a story where there are very believable connective tissues and narratives connecting all these characters together. Done a very good job. I love Lady Cop's interrogation of Travis Morgan. Travis Morgan wakes up. He was in that car accident last issue where he ran into Lady Cop. Lady Cop has some idea what's going on. What Lady Cop's been able to put together, Lady Cop, through the evidence over the last previous 5 issues, she knows that this character Atlas was killed with a sword, and she knows that at the crime scene in the desert, there's this dead 14-year-old kid, Goodlooks, who's a member of the Danger Street, dingbats of Danger Street. There was even diamonds found on the crime scene, which were actually a result of, I think, of Metamorpho getting involved, and so diamonds were created. So she's thinking maybe it was a diamond theft or gone wrong. Starman and Warlord were on the lam. Warlord ends up in the hospital. Lady Cap can't figure out why Warlord would return to the crime scene to try to steal the body. Of course, the reason why Warlord did that is that they want to resurrect the kid, I think, to try to bring him back to life. Warlord wakes up in the hospital, interrogated by Lady Cop. He's talking smart, but the fact of the matter is that Warlord and Starman are guilty of, they're guilty of negligent homicide at a minimum. There's no question about it. They orchestrated, what they did was bloody well criminal. They orchestrated and tried to attract Darkseid, hoping to defeat him and then impress the Justice League for Justice League membership. It was atrocious what Warlord and Starman would do. And, but that's sort of, that's what kind of makes it interesting. But instead of Darkseid showing up, Atlas does. And all this story flowed from that. We got the dingbats. We got the Green Team. More members of the Green Team. A black kid by the name of Abdul. His Manhunter tries to assassinate him, to kill him in this issue. Other members of the Green Team, Houston and Cecil, have already been killed. Commodore and Abdul are the only ones left. Commodore is setting up Abdul because he wants to survive. So he blocks all of Abdul's access to his money. And so Abdul, at the end of this issue, tries to go into hiding, and this is where we finally meet the outsiders at the end of this issue, and the outsiders consisting of an eclectic group of very odd-looking people, consisting of Lizard Johnny, Mighty Mary, Harry, Larry, and Billy, led by Dr. Goody Scary. None of the only person who's mentioned is Mary, but these characters are very eclectic. I got these names from Wikipedia. They're not actually named. They're not named in the story yet, other than Mary, Mighty Mary, who looks like a very weird-looking creature, other than her beautiful face. In any event, all these things are coming together. Lady Cop's trying to piece it all together, and there's an entertainment factor here. I can tell you that because we review every issue, what I give Tom King credit for, unlike, I'm going to say Tom King is better than Ed Brisson and Matthew Rosenberg at handling more than one character, because I can actually remember enough from previous issues as to who's who and where this is going, in a more sensible manner than even Ed Brisson and Matthew Rosenberg are capable. Matthew Rosenberg has, he's I think he's hit and miss with handling large casts in The Man Who Stopped Joker, The Man Who Stopped Laughing, and Ed Brisson is having mixed results with Batman Incorporated, as we just finished reviewing. But overall, I quite enjoy this.
Yeah, I mean, the cast of characters is slightly smaller, but you're right. Tom just has a way of distilling down these characters really, really well. I mean, there's a reason the guy's won multiple Eisners, right? Yes. Super talented, right? So, all right. Up next, we have Gotham Academy Maps of Mystery. And this, excuse me, this collects a lot of recently reprinted or recently published material for Maps Maguchi, who is a character from Gotham Academy, very, very beloved, probably the most beloved character of Gotham Academy. So it reprints backup stories that were in Batman number 119 and 121. Also, a story that was included in the 2022 Saved by the Bell Rev anthology from DC, and then also a Carl Kerschel story from Batman Black and White number 4. So it's all reprinted material, but I'm glad that that DC did this, because she, as I said, she's a beloved character, and a lot of times when you read those backups, just like we were talking about with the PKJ backup, it's such a small chunk of the story that it doesn't read as well as it does kind of all in one sitting, because it's not like these stories are, big long epics. It's not like if you collect those 3 backup stories from those 3 issues of Batman, 119 through 121, it's the equivalent of reading 3 comics. No, it's the equivalent of reading 1 comic, right? Because if a comic is about, 20 to 22 pages, and then the backup is 3 8-pagers, that's 24 pages. So it's right about the same. So the first one is They Make Great Pets. It's written, drawn, and lettered by Carl Kerschel, who's one of the creators that worked on Gotham Academy. Colors are by John Rausch. And that's a story that was in the Batman backups, as I said. And then the second story is the one that was in the Bell Rev anthology. That one, just let me get to the credits here. Let me see if I can find the credits.
Becky Cloonan and Brendan Fletcher were the writers.
Becky Cloonan and Brendan Fletcher were the writers on that one, and they're the ones that wrote the original Gotham Academy run, and Carl Kerschel is the artist on that one, with M. Sasiak on colors and Steve Wands on letters. So that's the whole original team from Gotham Academy getting back together to do that. And then the black and white one is Carl Kerschel doing the story and art with Steve Wands on letters. Obviously, there's no colors. It's Batman black and white. So, I enjoyed this. I had read these stories. I read all these stories before, and I'd read them rather recently, but I enjoyed them more this time, reading them all together in one sitting, than I did when I read them previously. So, fantastic.
Yeah, well, we reviewed them. I remember we reviewed them when they were in Batman. I mistakenly tweeted that it was that they were in Batman Urban Legends, but you're right, it was in Batman, and it's nice to see. It's nice to put the maps, the maps of mystery and into one compilation. It's because I do think that probably this is the better format for it to maybe focus on maps, focus on Gotham Academy. I got to say this is a little bit kind of a DC screw up. I mean, they should have maybe done this better. Even calling up Maps of Mystery. I mean, frankly, they should have had their own series or maybe a mini series. But it's nice to see this together. So maybe it'll get more attention than it did, sort of hidden in the back as a backup in various pages of Batman and other random printings. The problem with so many damn Batman comic books out there is that when you throw backups in random Batman comics, it's going to go missed because there's just too many damn Batman comics to begin with. And that's the great irony. You think that you're going to get a lot of exposure if you put something in a Batman comic. Well, when there's too many Batman comics and sales are already getting lower and lower, I mean, it's not always something that's going to be seen. And I think this is an example of that, of you want something exposed and, give it its own comic. So I'm glad Gotham Academy got that.
Yeah, and I love the main cover, how it looks like an old school kind of young reader novel, if you will. I just thought it was fantastic. It looks all distressed, what have you. So yeah, and they do at least call it Gotham Academy Maps of Mystery featuring Batman. So hopefully fans of Gotham Academy are going to know this is out there, and maybe that's why DC collected it all, right? Because it didn't get enough attention when it was in the books, because like you said, it's not like they were promoting, hey, if you're a fan of Maps Maguchi, you need to pick up these issues of Bat. We know they don't have comic companies don't have marketing departments anymore, so kind of understandable in that way.
Yeah.
All right, sorry, my dogs went crazy right there. Somebody came to the door, but anyway, let's move on. Superman Lost number 3. This is from Christopher Priest on plot and script, Carlo Pagulian on plot and art, Jason Paz does the inks, Jeremy Cox on colors, Willie Schubert on letters. Starts off with Lois at her computer, and for some reason getting mad, saying, "Damn it, Clark, I'm not your maid." She's working on an article. She gets mad. She makes a mess. And then next thing, she's picking up dirty clothes, saying, "Clark, I'm not your maid," and comes across a broken piece of technology and that white costume that we saw in the last few pages of the last issue. So with that, we flash back to when Clark is in space, and we get more context. It's actually, for being a Christopher Priest comic, which Christopher Priest comics can be pretty dense, and he can make references to things in sort of the fictional back history of the story he's telling, but he can also make references to real things that happen in history, so you're never quite sure. And so sometimes it requires some effort if you want to have full understanding of what Priest is trying to do. He's another one whose stories read a lot better collected than they do as kind of a serial story. That being said, this particular issue, there's a kind of nothing you need to know. He doesn't make any strange references or whatever. It's all in the moment of Clark trying to get back to Earth, and there's a lot of context. There's a lot of him talking to that piece of equipment that he saw that was crushed, or that Lois saw rather that was crushed, that she found at the bottom of his closet. It's a PSK personal survival kit that he got from the gentleman Victor that he met on the planet that he was on last issue, and it's sort of like a version of a mother box in a way. It can give him all kinds of information about where he is, where things are in the universe, that sort of thing. And at the end of the issue, he gets frustrated and he breaks it, and then it's in the condition that we see it in the story where Lois discovered it. Which is strange that he held on to it if it was broken. But it's Superman being Superman, traveling, trying to get home. Again, just being who he is, out there protecting people that he can protect, different alien species. And more than anything, so far, what has struck me about the series, other than Christopher Priest really distilling Superman down to who he is at his core, is the art by Carlo Pagulian. Like, if this series exists just to showcase what Carlo Pagulian can do, putting Superman out in this cosmic setting, then I am perfectly fine with that, because this art is amazing. We get
it's incredible. Yeah.
We get an appearance by the Space Dolphins that most DC fans, Lobo fans will remember from that series, that can travel at speeds greater than the speed of light, which Superman kind of hitches along with them for a little while, because again, he's not fully powered, and he's trillions of light years from Earth. And you have to set aside what PKJ is doing right now with Superman being so powerful that time and space kind of don't matter to him, which I also love. But this depowered Superman or less powered Superman, and I mean, you could, if you wanted to, kind of have your own continuity in your head for how this could be. Well, again, maybe it's the fact that in the PKJ Action Comic story, he's fully powered up by the sun, right? So he can travel immense distances quickly. Here, he's not. He's not fully powered. He's not in range of a yellow sun or a yellow star, and so he's not able to charge up. And for that reason, he can't fly as fast. But he hitches a ride with these dolphins, and they actually came to find out, came looking for him because they have some offspring that are trapped because the dolphins were eating the life, the people, that the inhabitants of this alien world. Not everybody's humanoid, and the inhabitants of this world, they're sort of a hive mind, if you will, and they're sort of the intergalactic version of plankton. And so the dolphins are going to eat those things, because they're dolphins, and that's what they do, not realizing that, hey, these are this plankton, this intergalactic plankton or what have you, cosmic plankton, is sentient. It's more of its parts. And so they created this defense system, and now some of the dolphins are trapped. So the dolphins that weren't trapped sensed that Superman was nearby. They went and rescued him. And so again, Priest really showcasing who Superman is, looking for a diplomatic solution. Yes, I want to protect the dolphins, but yes, I want to make sure they don't eat the plankton as well. And then he ends up so he rescues the dolphins. They fly off at, speeds faster than the speed of light, but accidentally leaving Superman behind, but yet taking his personal survival kit other than the little mother box type device with them. And that's out of frustration where Superman breaks the device. So yeah, he traveled a long way really, really quickly with these dolphins, and, was trying to get to a place where he could communicate with them better, tell them, hey, I need you to take me to Earth, so he can actually get home in a reasonable amount of time. For as much time as has passed for him, he's been gone a year already. And so, he's thinking that it's been a year for Lois as well, and she must be freaking out. So again, the story is amazing. The art is just beyond anything I've seen in a really long time in a Superman comic. I mean, it's just stunning. It is so gorgeous. And I'm a big fan of this white Superman costume. I never thought that. But it's just amazing. The line work is amazing. And big shout out to Jeremy Cox as well, the color artist, especially in some of these cosmic scenes with the dolphins. There's lots of blues and pinks and purples. It's just beautiful. It's so fantastic to look at. I was just blown away page after page. So what were your thoughts?
I share your sentiment regarding your comments regarding the art. Pagulin is just amazing. I mean, he's just the art is truly fantastic. The colors pop off the page. It's really, really good. And this is a very straightforward Superman story. My fear is, though, because I have to tell you, I really did, as beautiful as I found this this issue, it was just beautiful to look at. I found it really boring. Yet I could understand Superman doing what he did, and I can understand Christopher Priest wanting to say, this is going to be 10 issues long, and if I imagine every issue we're going to get another reason why Superman is so spectacular and why he's such a great person, and why despite all his bout of dealing with this loneliness and the solitude and the space, he's still going to find a way to do the right thing, and that's good. I just hope his adventures get a lot more adventurous than this. I was bored silly from this. Now don't get me wrong. I guess Space Dolphins, it was kind of a nice feel good issue. I hope this is the last feel good one we get. To be quite blunt, I want more action. I want more adventure. I want more spectacularness. I want much more drama. I want some more. I want some destruction. I want spaceships. I want other characters. Because this is something where we got a lot of issues left here. And if honestly, I don't. Visually, this is fantastic, but I want the story to be ramped up, and I'm willing to be patient. This is only the third issue, but I'm really, I'd like to see a little bit more here. Already, you can see the pattern of the storytelling. because you can see right at the beginning, Lois comes across, different things that Superman has, his costume. She's probably going to discover other things that he's not talking about because he's clearly psychologically traumatized. He's clearly psychologically impacted by his 20 years being away from Earth. And very clearly throughout the narrative, I'd like to see how some sign of how Lois helps Superman through it. How Lois, what does Lois discover? I mean, she's an investigative reporter. If she senses something wrong with her husband, is she as good at getting to understand her husband as she is as getting to the bottom of a story? Can she help her husband just like she can help humanity by winning a Pulitzer? I mean, I want to see Lois step up to the plate to do something to help her husband here overcome whatever it is he experienced while dealing with 20 years of solitude, if that's what it was. Because if we're just going to get issue after issue of Superman floating in space, no matter how fantastic the visuals are, I'm going to be bored silly. So this story has a tremendous amount of potential. It still does. I like this issue. I love the art. I'm hoping the story picks up, and fingers crossed, because I think it has a lot of potential to be. This has a potential to be an evergreen if it's written right. And Christopher Priest has never written anything where I can look back on and say it's a must read. Maybe this will be the first one by the time we get to issue 10.
It's funny you mentioned evergreen because I kind of feel like it is already with only 3 issues. I get what you're saying in terms of, hey, I want action, I want this awesome whatever. I think this is not that. I think this is more of an emotional Superman story where it's going to lean into who he is, his values, his love for Lois. I mean, I could be wrong, but this doesn't come across to me as some big Superman epic where he's fighting giant monsters and what have you. If you want that, go read Warworld. This to me feels like it's something that's going to be more emotional with fantastic art. I could be wrong, but we haven't gotten a lot of that other than the scene with the kind of wormhole device, the singularity engine. There hasn't been any of that kind of big blockbuster summer popcorn flick kind of action in this story. Not so far. But I don't know. Maybe it's coming. Who knows? I guess we'll have to wait and see. Okay, up next we have Spirit World #1. This is written by Alyssa Wong. Art is by Hanning. Sebastian Cheng does colors. Janice Chang on letters. It picks right up where the We Are Legends DC one-shot that collected a bunch of stories about characters of Asian descent from DC, including Xanth Zhao here. She's the main character. She's dead, supposedly, and it's her job to kind of help spirits that have newly been released from their mortal coil to be escorted to the spirit world. Thus, the name of the title, Spirit World. But in the course of the story that we had, I can't remember what it was in originally, but it was I think it might have been
Lazarus Planet Dark Fate. Lazarus Planet Dark Fate.
Yeah, the Lazarus Planet one shot where the Cassandra Cain Batgirl got pulled into the spirit world, and Xanth Zhao got stuck in the regular world. So that's, you probably need to read that. I mean, I wouldn't say 100%, but if you read that, you'll know kind of what's going on in this story. And I'm finding Xanthi to be a very interesting character. I like her look. I like the kind of voice that Alyssa Wong gives her. It's great seeing Cassandra Cain. It's great seeing John Constantine. So I'm enjoying this so far, as much as I'm not a big Magic, DC fan. I'm just not a fan of the Magic corner of the DC universe, but that's all we're getting this year. So between this and the Nightmare stuff that Joshua Williamson has coming up, so I guess I better learn to love it. But this is quality. This is technically a very good comic. The art is great. Colors are great. And again, the voice of Xanthi is very interesting. So I enjoyed this. What do you think?
I sort of have mixed feelings about it, but I think it has potential to introduce a new kind of understanding and a different spin on the mythology or the understanding of death in the afterlife in the DC universe. And so it's interesting in that regard. And I thought it was a little wonky. I thought at first regarding I had to read it a couple times to get a handle on exactly. Let's put it this way. I actually had to read the advertisement to understand the basics of what was going on. Because literally in the advertisement, it says that meet Xanthi Zhou, a Chinese hero. My ignorance, I didn't know she was Chinese in the narrative, with the ability to travel in and out of the spirit world, the realm of the dead, and she's got a super, or their superpower. And again, it's there because that's her pronoun. So there's different parts of the narrative that might be confusing to those who don't realize that you refer to her as them and they. So her slash their superpower is based on the East Asian custom of burning joss paper at grave sites to send resources to ancestors in the spirit world, which will come in handy when Xanthi teams up with John Constantine. That was not clear to me when on my initial read. It became more clear to me as I read the narrative. Certainly, it wasn't particularly clear in the opening, our introduction to the character in Lazarus Planet Dark Fate. It's become more clear here. So, writer Alyssa Wong.
There's a character Popo. There's a character Popo in this issue that explains that when they burn stuff, then it manifests itself in the spirit world.
So. Yeah, and but even there, I got a lot of questions, and then there was even a joke saying that money's worthless in the spirit world because so many people have burned money. Well, I don't know about that. How many people actually burn money? Not too many people. Furthermore, why would any amount of money be worth something in the spirit world? You're dead. And why would people, when they're dead, go to the spirit world anyway? It doesn't make any sense. So I got a lot of questions in terms of the whole mythology of the spirit world anyway. And then the spirit world, people in the spirit world somehow like to eat the living. So when they're in the spirit world, when Cassandra Cain gets there, this collective group of tortured souls drag her in to the spirit world. And because she's anything living in the spirit world attracts all these dead spirits that want to devour them. And the only reason this Mother Popo, she seems to have some ability. She creates some beads that she gives Bowen and Xanthi to wear to have them be able to resist this compulsion to do that. So I still have some questions as in terms of exactly what the power set is. But I have to say that artist Henning is very, very good. I'm interested in this. And I think it's good for the DC universe. Just like the Monkey King was good, it took a while for Monkey King to grow on me. And I think maybe you too a little bit at the beginning. But he grew into his own character. And this Xanthi is a very interesting character. And you know what? It's going to educate me and get me used to maybe using pronouns, which I probably have to in this new day and age. And I'm all for it. I mean, it's I think there's a lot of interesting things here. Her power set. It's going to be interesting to see what Alyssa Wong does with the character moving forward. I like the use of Cassandra Cain. It gives her something to do outside the Bat family because she's kind of a redundancy there and she's never been utilized to her full potential. So I'm really curious to see what happens here. And John Constantine and Xanthi have found a gateway in our world into the spirit world to rescue Cassandra Cain. And with Mother Popo and this Bowen character there, I'm actually curious to see what's ultimately going to happen. This issue ends with Xanthi running into her mother in our world, which is quite interesting because I'm not sure exactly what the history of Xanthi is and what her relationship was like with her mother, because she's essentially an orphan herself. And Cassandra Cain is also an orphan, so she's got something in common with Cassandra Cain. So I'm really curious to see what writer Alyssa Wong does with this. And I think Henning, as an artist, does a pretty good job conveying the story itself. So this pleasantly surprised me because I was looking more forward to City Boy, and maybe I still am, but this impressed me. This was better than I thought it was going to be, straight up.
Yeah, and I don't think I said enough about how good the art was. Yeah, there's a real human quality, a softness to the art, but a little bit of manga influence with kind of the larger eyes and a lot of emotion in the face. So, great job. All right, up next we have the final issue of Stargirl and the Lost Children. It's written by Geoff Johns. Art is by Todd Knock. Matt Herms is the colorist, and Rob Lee does the letters. What do you think of this?
Once again, Todd Knock, sorry, continues to impress. I mean, everything from the cover here is just incredible. There's so many I mean, I think there's been. I get the. I'm perceiving. I seem to think that there's been some delays on this title, but maybe I'm wrong on that. But if there hasn't been any delays, kudos to artist Todd Knock, because this is the art here is incredible. The number of double page spreads here is extremely impressive, and once again, all these characters. I mean, they're just. I mean, what's it's very clear, especially with Stargirl and the Lost Children here, and DC is on a family kick where we've got the Batman family, Green Arrow family lately. We got the Flash family, and of course we've already had the Green Lantern Corps, and we got the Blue Beetles expanding into like the Power Rangers of the DC universe, and now we've got this whole influx now of these lost children who, at the end of this issue, they managed to escape Orphan Island. They escape the childminder, and the Hour Man from the future ends up. It's revealed that he was actually under the influence of an adult, Corky Baxter, who shows up, and the children are ultimately sent to the present. So the lost children are not sent back to their 1940s time periods. They're actually sent back to present day. Earth designate zero, or present day Earth, which is very interesting because now we've got all this fodder for brand new younger superhero groups in the DC universe, and so now we can have a genuine new membership for a new Young Justice or a new young superhero group, because we got all these new members for the DC universe, genuine legacy characters moving forward, and they look amazing. The only character that doesn't make it back is the character Wing, who ends up having to go back to the 1940s to give his life in order to defeat a villain whose name I forget off the top of my head. But in any event, this is a story. There's tragedy here. There's betrayal. There's sacrifice. And all, just beautifully rendered. I think it's obvious that the 6 issues, the intent of the 6 issues, this wasn't a particularly complicated plot. This was really just Stargirl and the Red Arrow and Eco going back, finding Orphan Island and rescuing the lost children and bringing them to the present time period, so that now we have all these young kids that can now make up, basically be new heroes, so that the DC universe can have a new generation of heroes. And oddly enough, it doesn't feel forced. When I compare this to Marvel now, the much controversial Marvel period of 2015, I think it was, where they introduced all these younger generational legacy characters that was kind of controversial and had mixed results. Somehow, I think Geoff Johns has managed to introduce a whole influx of brand new characters here, these lost children, in a way that actually feels more organic than what Marvel did with Marvel now. And so, but anyways, I'm impressed. There's some character moments with a young Corky Baxter disappointed with his older self, because it ends up that a corrupt version of an older Corky Baxter ended up being the one that corrupted the mind of Our Man, who also manipulated Childminder to try to keep all these kids trapped on Orphan Island. But ultimately, Judy Garrick steals the computer brain of Our Man, and it's being manipulated, so they fix that, put it back into Our Man. They end up defeating Corky Baxter, and they end up winning the day. And the sacrifice that Wing makes at the end, deciding to go back because he has to give his life to save the universe, he does that. Corky Baxter feels guilty at the end, and there's a hint at the end with Judy. It shows Judy saying "Dad" in the background, and Judy and Jay Garrick. You can see his side profile as he looks. Jay Garrick never remembered that he had a daughter, and we now know that Jeremy Adams, who was taken off the Flash, Wally West Flash, is going to be writing that Jay Garrick Flash series. And this will be a nice segue into that Flash series whenever it appears, hopefully in the next 6 months. I'm not sure when that advertisement was, but You couldn't have a better writer assigned to a Jay Garrick Flash story than Jeremy Adams, coming hot off the presses of his run on Wally West, which will end in the next few months. So I thought this was a fitting end. I thought it wasn't particularly overly complicated. It didn't need to be. It did the job that it needed to do. Introduce some more characters into the DC universe that have a lot of potential for other writers moving forward. So, what do you think?
Yeah, I enjoyed it. It ended up being, like you said, a little more simplistic than I originally thought. Um, yeah, lots of new characters in present day. It's explained that they couldn't be taken back to their own time, or taken back to the moment they disappeared from the timeline, because then it would cause all sorts of contradictions in time and paradoxes and what have you. But they're back, and yeah, Jay Garrick's still alive. So now he gets introduced to his daughter. We get the Jeremy Adams series, as you mentioned. So yeah, pretty interesting. And what I found most interesting, because it is a great moment when Corky Baxter shows up, and is kind of the big bad, and his younger self there, and that confrontation, that conversation he has, interaction he has with his younger self, and it all really comes down to the fact that Corky doesn't have enough faith in the heroism of these young kids, Wing in particular, right? Probably because Corky is so self-involved. He's such a narcissistic character. He's so young, and that's okay. It's okay. Like if you talk to a 3-year-old or a 4-year-old or 5-year-old, they're inherently narcissistic. Their world revolves around themselves because that's the only thing they know. They may have some empathy, but they're not looking. They're not thinking, well, what's it like to walk in the shoes of somebody else? Like that's just not where you're at when you're that age. And so I think Corky being that age, he can't understand that given the opportunity, Wing is going to go and sacrifice himself to take out the Nebula Man and save the universe, save the world, save the galaxy, save the multiverse, however you want to put it. But given the opportunity, Wing does exactly that. Wing sacrifices himself. And then Corky, it's a learning experience for him. It's a growth experience, and it's a great scene written by Geoff Johns where Rip Hunter is trying to explain to Corky, hey, yeah, you were, technically the villain of this adventure, but you learned. You're no longer going to be that person. You have to take this as a learning experience. So, whether he will or not remains to be seen. I still find Corky to be somewhat of an annoying character, but here we are with a potential for growth for him. So I thought that was handled really, really well. And yeah, like yourself, I'm really looking forward to the Jeremy Adams Flash run. Flash series with Jay and Judy. We'll see how that all comes together. I'm really, really excited for that. And yeah, the Todd Knock art here is fantastic as always. So many characters, and Todd doesn't miss a beat. Really bright colors as well. I thought the color work from Matt Herms was done really superbly. Very, very primary colors. And as I've said many times, primary color gives you that real classic superhero feel. Yeah. So,
and we should also mention a final note that there's 2 teams that are confirmed at the end of this. One we already know of course, that's the Justice Society of America, and the other one that has also been revitalized in the present is the Seven Soldiers of Victory. So we may expect to see some more of them in the year that follows in this dawn of the DCU. It's just mentioned here at the end, so maybe we'll see some more of those characters that made up that Seven Soldiers of Victory, or some new characters that make up their membership. So,
yeah, we'll see. All right, up next, Wildcats number 7. This is written by Matthew Rosenberg. Danny Kim and Christian Duce are the artists. Elmer Santos and Tony Avina on colors. Ferran Delgado on letters. I feel a little bit like this was very much a Talking Heads issue. We saw at the end of the last issue that Grifter Cole Cash took out Void, and apparently that has thrown him tumbling and traveling through the multiverse, different worlds, different realities of the DCU. I gotta admit that it's getting a little cliched, right? Like ever since Scott Snyder did what he did in Dark Knight's Death Metal, and he talked about, I heard him say so many times at so many different conventions or interviews where it's like, think of the DC universe as a goldfish bowl, and now we've dumped that goldfish bowl into the ocean, and there's an infinite number of realities, infinite number of infinities, if you will. It's no longer just 52 Earths or what have you. And so all of a sudden every writer wants to take their character and just put them world through world through world through world, or send them traveling through different mythological worlds. It's kind of not that interesting anymore, to be honest with you. Um, Seeing these different of characters was fun at first, but now it's gotten sort of old, and we saw a ton of it in the lead up to Infinite Crisis, or what was it? Dark Crisis on Infinite Earths. We saw a ton of it um, in Infinite Frontier. So yeah, it doesn't really interest me. What interests me more is the political aspect of the story, which I feel like is being doled out very slowly. Because a lot of people don't realize this, maybe because it was a Jim Lee creation, and the art was sort of the priority early on in those Wildcats issues. But Wildcats inherently, like by concept, is a very political book with these different organizations or alien races that have been at war for a long time. Um, the Damonites and the Kebrium, or however you pronounce it, hiding out on Earth and being at war for centuries, if not thousands of years. Um, and so there's a lot of secrecy, a lot of kind of behind the scenes, or hiding out on Earth and what have you. So there's a big political aspect to it, and that is interesting to me. But being that this is coming so slow, it's hard to kind of wrap my head around it and understand where we're at in this current version of Wildcats. So I'm still on board. I still give Matthew Rosenberg, the writer, a lot of credit for the voices that he gives these Wildcats characters. It both feels fresh, but yet they seem recognizable in terms of their characterization and personality for who they were back in the day. And that's a very tough balance to strike. And he does a fantastic job. Um, so, I am still interested. This is still a good story. I just wish it would move along a little faster. The art is fantastic in this issue. It's been Steven Segovia for the art on most of them, but we have two artists here. I didn't even really realize it was two artists. So, Danny Kim and Christian Duce do a good job of melding their styles together really, really well. And it's a fun book, but like I said, bit of a talking heads issue. I'm ready for it to move along a little quicker. So, what were your thoughts?
Uh, I I read this issue three times again, and you know what? The way that I miss certain things when we reviewed Green Lantern, so and I miss things when I with Batman Incorporated, and I clearly I because I'm very confused in this issue, and I read this one three times too, and I don't understand what Cole's doing. Void, he killed Void because we thought Void was the bad person, but Void sent him throughout the universe, and he's traveling throughout different multiverses here, and he ends up in Salvation at the beginning where he's killed by Jonah Hex, and then Cole, the Grifter, is being sent through different multiverses, different Earths, where he apparently he helps people, and then he ends up on an Earth where his brother is still alive, and meanwhile, it's revealed that the Void apparently when Void and Grifter have been working together in the past, where if people wanted to disappear, what Void would do would send Grifter into another Earth in the multiverse and kill that person that they were trying to protect, and bring that person's corpse back into our universe and replace that, and make it look like that person was dead, so that they could protect the person here. So if you wanted to fake your own death, that's what Void and Grifter were doing. Why then Grifter killed Void last issue, I'm not really sure. Somebody I thought was trying to take over the Wildcats. I thought that was Marlowe, but maybe it isn't. Now I'm not sure. I don't really understand exactly what's going on. I don't know why Grifter needs to be in other parts on other Earths. He's meeting his brother, and then he's having an adventure on another Earth. Why? What does this have to do with the main narrative? I have no idea now. Is Marlowe corrupt and trying to what? He already controls the Wildcats, so I've completely lost the narrative. Like, what is actually going on here? I just don't know, and I don't know where this is going, and So I'll just fall on my sword and say, I don't get it. I've read it 3 times. I still don't understand what's going on. It's lost any emotional gravitas for me. There should be an emotional moment with Grifter meeting his brother in another universe, his brother who died. But in this universe, it was Cole who died, and as opposed to his brother. But it has none because he's just jumped from universe to universe, and I don't really understand how it has anything to do with the main narrative itself. I'm not sure if is Void dead. If Void was dead, why did Void send him on into different Earths? I I don't really know. I wish I could understand exactly what's going on. Um, uh, yeah, I'm lost. I'm lost. I don't know what Matthew Rosenberg's trying to say or do here. We're now 7 issues in, and I'm completely lost. And I don't. I've lost this narrative, and I've got no desire to go and read the previous 7 issues because I don't think it's going to help. So I don't know. He's going to have to. Matthew Rosenberg does not, and this is. I found this issue was worse than than last week's Rosenberg's Joker, the man who can't stop laughing. He's losing me on these narratives. He has to reel this in. He's got to focus on clarity more for me, or maybe it's just his writing that I just can't get a handle on it. But this was just a really big miss for me. The art's fine, and one complaint I want to have is just on Caitlin Fairchild. Like, she seems to grow old. I don't know if she's young. She's a young kid, and then when she powers up, she looks like an adult. I remember when Caitlin Fairchild was leader of Gen 13, she was the team's strongest leader. She was the smartest leader. And the way she's portrayed here is just insulting. She's like an annoying kid brat. And I don't even know what purpose she serves, but I'm really starting to dislike this version of the Wildcats because this team isn't gelling. And it seems everything's haphazard, and it seems completely unfocused. This doesn't seem like a team effort. No one knows. None of the team members know what the other team members are doing. They're always infighting, and then they're always betraying each other. Then they're not betraying each other. Then it's revealed that, oh well, it was all a ruse, and they're getting along. And then they're doing this because they know Marlowe's corrupt, and now all of a sudden Void is dead. But is she dead? And then she sends Cole into the. I don't know. It's a mess, and I don't know. Like, I'll just stop talking now. But this isn't working for me.
Okay, fair enough. That's kind of the point. It's what I was talking about being a very political book. And again, Wildcats was a political book back in the day. Yeah, 100% Emp is up to something. Marlowe's up to something. That's been clear from the beginning. The overtones have been there. And that's why you have fractures within the team, because you have people that maybe they're on the inside, maybe they understand what Marlowe's doing, or they just follow him out of blind loyalty. And then you have the Wildcats themselves, who are kind of wise to the fact that he's planning something nefarious and are going behind his back to stop him. And it seems like Void kind of flipped sides and was willing to work with him, and that's why Grifter took her out. Why he's jumping through time? Well, that's the central mystery. That's what's mentioned multiple times in this issue by Cole himself and by the rest of the Wildcats when they view the footage. They don't know why Void sent him. Like, why did Void do what she did? Why did she send him tumbling through the multiverse? Cole doesn't know, and the Wildcats don't know, and we as readers don't know. The only one that does know is Void, and we're going to get that answer to that eventually. But in the meantime, what is Marlowe up to? Why is he, sneaking around and lying and going behind the backs of the other Wildcats? Well, again, that's the point of the story. That's what we're trying to find out. That's what the Wildcats themselves are trying to find out covertly, so that they don't kind of notify or they don't get caught sneaking around behind Marlowe's back. That's the point. It's a very political book. I can understand why it might confuse some people or it's not real clear, but yeah, this isn't the Wildcats cartoon. This isn't just a traditional superhero team book. This is a political book. It's very, I don't want to say convoluted, but I'll say it's complicated. It's a tough narrative to follow.
I'll say it's convoluted.
Yeah, I know you will. You're not enjoying it. I'm enjoying it immensely, and I wasn't a big fan of Wildcats back in the day when it first launched, mostly because of the delays. But yeah, it's clear that Matthew Rosenberg is a huge Wildcats fan. He has all the history, all the knowledge of it in his head, and he's crafting something here that's kind of a step above what Wildcats was in the back in the day, as it were. So, all right, moving on. Sandman Universe, Nightmare Country. We're up to issue number 2 of this. It's written by James Tynion. Patricio Del Pesce is the artist. Simon Boland on letters. Give us your thoughts on this one.
Well, this was, I think this is, James Tynion did I thought his first arc of the Glass House was well done. I thought he established a new mythology for the Corinthian. And the new mythology is that this new character, this female character named Madison Flynn, is actually now linked to the Corinthian, where the Corinthian cannot take a life or commit any act of violence without Madison Flynn's consent. And this particular issue continues the story of this individual by the name of Max, who is an employee of this profit corporation run by this individual named Maury Prophet, who has visions of Armageddon. And Max becomes involved, where he goes to this party, and you're only invited to this party if you're sort of part of the corporate group. And the corporate group is very evil here. It's very sort of tropey in that corporations are bad and very evil, and it's almost like this Maury Prophet guy is like he's the devil. And Max ends up falling in love with this character with this purple hair, with this disgusting skin. She looks extremely I don't know why he falls in love with essentially a rotting corpse, really, but she's not, I don't know if she's not rotting, but she's got these blisters on her body. She's got purple hair. And this character, he falls in love with her because apparently he's had a really deep conversation with her, being a little bit tongue in cheek here, but he falls in love with her. And it's ultimately revealed that this character was actually Madison Flynn's old roommate, who went missing in the first story arc of this story. And so we never knew what happened with Madison Flynn's old roommate. We know that Madison Flynn ended up dying and then becoming linked to the Corinthian. Such that the Corinthian can't do any violence or kill anybody without Madison Flynn's consent. But what happened to Madison Flynn's roommate? It would appear that she's now this glorified, shall we say, lady of the night, this stripper / hooker who works for this corporation, who apparently now is in love with this Max character. And meanwhile, the Corinthian gets almost psychologically manipulated by Desire. At least I believe it's Desire, who's trying to pull Corinthian to its side by telling Corinthian, how would you like to get your old powers back? How would you like to be in control of your life again? So you're not essentially beholden to Madison Flynn's consent to whatever it is you want to do. And essentially that's what happens to the Corinthian at the end here. And this is definitely the Corinthian is an LGBTQ character, and he's tempted by Desire by looking, being in a sort of erotic nightclub with that caters to his particular sexual proclivities, and exactly what Desire wants from Corinthian is unclear. I'm not entirely clear where this is going, but it's clear that this prophet character, this leader of this corporation, is utilizing Max and is utilizing things because he has a vision of Armageddon, and this, I'm sure that's linked with Desire's machinations of wanting to manipulate the Corinthian and overcome the influence of the Sandman and Madison Flynn. So I'm really curious to see where this is going. Very clearly, James Tynion has a plan. There's some linkages here to the first story arc. And so if you're not on board, if you haven't been reading previous issues, you're probably going to be completely lost with this issue. But if you've been on board from the beginning, this probably will be an issue that captivates you. So what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, for not being a horror fan, that's what Tynion does best. And he's given up all these superhero comics to write horror, and was mainly focused on creator-owned stuff. Obviously, he still did the Nice House on the Lake at DC, but he was offered this Sandman Country, and being a Neil Gaiman property, he couldn't turn it down. So it's like the one licensed book he's still doing, and it's fantastic. It shows his mastery of horror. I wouldn't say this is super suspenseful or really scary or terrifying or anything, but it sure is creepy. And the way that this second volume, Nightmare Country Glass Houses, is tying in to the first volume with Madison Flynn's roommate, as Rocky mentioned, who disappeared before we even got a chance to really see her or meet her in the first volume. Her showing up here, yeah, real interesting way to tie it in. Obviously, the Corinthian is in both. Madison Flynn, reincarnated as a kitten or a cat here, is in both. Don't know where this is going, but it definitely feels like it fits within the Sandman universe. I think that is its probably best attribute, the fact that it feels so right at home, yet in the Sandman corner of the DCU, and yet it feels so fresh with these new characters. So Tynion clearly is a fan of Sandman, the Sandman universe within DC, and he's crafting something that's interesting and compelling that fits in seamlessly with that corner of the DCU. So, all right, up next, head over to yet a different corner of the DCU, the Sean Gordon Murphy verse. White Knight presents Generation Joker. This is written by Katana Collins and Clay McCormick, probably with some input from Sean Murphy. Mirka Andolfo is the artist. Alejandro Sanchez does colors. I'm pulling all that from the cover, so I'm not exactly sure how everyone is credited inside, because for some reason our press preview doesn't have the credits. But I know Katana Collins has written some Sean Gordon Murphy verse material previously. I think she did the Harley Quinn series along with Sean Gordon Murphy, which was very, very good. And then Clay McCormick was sort of editor, sounding board, what have you, when Sean Gordon Murphy, right when he launched the very first title in this part of the DC multiverse, Batman White Knight. And then eventually Sean was able to, because early on, and by his own admission, Sean's like, man, I wanted to be the only one that wrote stories because I had a specific vision. He's been able to let go of the reins a little bit. He's allowed Katana, he's allowed Clay. Clay wrote the 2-part Red Hood story that we got previously. And then, yeah, fantastic Mirka Andolfo art and great colors by Alejandro Sanchez. So that being said, this is a good book. It's technically well put together. Perhaps it's just because it focuses on Jack Napier and his kids that I find it to be probably the least interesting White Knight property that I've read. Not because it's not good, not because it's not great art or well paced and good dialogue, but just I don't have much interest in Jack Napier or his kids. So that's kind of on me. Bit of Bruce, we get a little bit of Harley, and then even Red Hood shows up at the end, and I can't remember what his new Robin sidekick's name is.
Is it Gao or something, or Gone?
Oh, yeah.
Gone?
Yeah, that sounds right. G-O-N, or Gone, something like that.
Gone.
Yeah, anyway, that's on me, that I don't have much interest in Jack Napier. So, but yeah, high quality, good art, good covers, good colors. So, yeah, I mean, maybe you enjoyed it more than me. What'd you think?
Well, I think I did enjoy it more than you. I actually like that this is the Joker is an artificial intelligence program. This is the Joker's AI program he steals the Batmobile and he takes his 2 kids, Jackie and Bryce, on a road trip to tell them about his past so that they can learn something about their father other than the fact that he was just a psychopath named Joker. And so shenanigans ensue. That's what happens. And so, I mean, Harley Quinn has got some fears, and so does Bruce Wayne. And they're a little bit worried about Jackie because they're worried that maybe Jackie one day is going to turn in and is going to turn into her father, the darker side of her father. We know what happened to Jack Napier. He became the Joker. They're concerned that maybe Jackie's going to turn into maybe her own little Joker as she gets older. And so I think that the fear here is that, well, what's going to, Harley grounds Jackie and ends up, Jackie is the one that seems to get in trouble a lot. And her brother Bryce is really into computers as well. And he seems to be a little bit more of an introspective young lad. But he wants to get to know his dad, and they wish that they knew more about their father. And lo and behold, Jackie, of course, has access to the AI program following the events from the previous series, and so they access the AI program, and it ends up that the Joker or Jack Napier tells them that as an AI program, the program's going to disintegrate in 1 week. And so he's only got 1 week to spend as an AI program, as a construct, as a hologram construct, to tell his children, Jackie and Bryce, aspects about his life. And if things don't go particularly well, because by the end of the issue, while they go on this road trip, the Joker, Jack Napier, leaves a message for Harley telling them where he's gone. And he wants to show the kids where he first met his mom, et cetera, et cetera. And so ultimately, that's what Jack does. Joker takes the kids to go there, but they end up. We learn something about the Joker's past, and we learn that in fact the Joker. The Joker at some point actually ended up killing the Killer Croc, Penguin, Scarecrow, and Two-Face, who are known as Dragon Man, Birdman, Nightmare Man, and Split Man. And also the Joker at one point hired Azrael to murder Arnold Wesker, who was the ventriloquist, and it's the ventriloquist's daughter that wants to get revenge on the Joker at the end. But because the Joker is just a hologram, the ventriloquist's daughter will take it out by killing Jackie and Bryce. Meanwhile, what's perhaps more interesting to Harley and Poison Ivy fans is that Harley ends up being, she goes to follow the Joker, tries to find her kids, and she ends up being followed by Neo Joker, and Neo Joker is with this version of Poison Ivy. So we're getting the White Knight version of I guess you could say the quasi Harley Quinn, the Neo Joker, and Poison Ivy in this issue as well. So it's going to be interesting to see what role they play in this narrative. So I thought this was a really good opening issue, and I'm impressed. If I didn't know better, I think Katana Collins and McCormack, I think they're accessing their inner Sean Gordon Murphy very well. So I was impressed with it.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, Katana Collins is Sean Gordon Murphy's girlfriend. So
fair enough, I guess.
So yeah, she probably has an easy time using him as a resource, I'll say.
Yeah.
Okay, so that does it for the books we're going to talk about in detail. There are a couple of other titles, single issues that came out this week.
We're not going to. There is Harley screws up the DCU.
Yeah, Multiversity, Harley screws up the DCU. Words by Frank Thierry, pictures by Logan Farber. I'm not reading it. Are you following along?
Well, I did read it. I can. Okay. Well, just a quick comment on it. It's just Harley screws up the DCU. The issue just consists of Harley, ending up Harley finds herself, a bunch of Harleys are screwing up the multiverse, and one version of Harley ends up interfering with the origins of Superman, and then subsequently interfering with the origins of Barry Allen, and this causes some serious problems, and ultimately other Harleys have to undo and fix the screw ups, and and then there's another universe of Starros that the Starros want to take over the multiverse, and the Starros now are targeting all the Harleys in the multiverse because they, for some reason which is unexplained, they view all these Harleys as a threat to them taking over the multiverse. And that's really it in a nutshell. There's a lot of Frank Thierry, the writer here, he really does his best to try to imbue a lot of humor here. A lot of the humor, I think, is a little bit forced, a little bit over the top. The Flash's origin is changed when they salvage Barry Allen's origin. One of the chemicals that Harley Quinn accidentally puts on the chemical shelf that's hit by lightning is a bunch of monkey urine. So the Flash now permanently smells like monkey urine. And also, one of the ways that they managed to salvage the origin of Superman was that she told Laura to abandon her nannies, which were going to have an interference with Kal-El, young Kal-El, by warning Laura of Laura and Jor-El that if she doesn't take Kal-El, that he might get a case of space diarrhea. So, and there was also some comment that she made some comment that when she arrived on Krypton, Harley thought that Krypton, the scene looked like a Jewish circumcision ritual called a brie, which since I'm not Jewish, I'm not.
Yeah, I think it's
A
called
what?
bris.
A
I think it's
bris?
pronounced.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a strong Jewish bias in this. I have no idea. I know nothing about Jewish tradition and stuff, but uh, so some of the humor was lost on me, but I could see that the attempt was made. I'm not a fan of the art. The art is sort of, frankly, I think this art would have. The artist is by Logan Faber, but again, I'm not really sure where this is going, but again, it's the same type of humor. I would think that this would make a great story for the Harley Quinn cartoon, quite frankly, because I think it's right in that alley. So I think if you're fans of the cartoon, you might get a kick out of this, even though the style of art might be a little bit off.
Yeah, fair enough. All right. Collections this week, we have Gotham Academy trade paperback. It collects the whole thing, Gotham Academy 1 through 18 and Gotham Academy number 1. Then we've got Wonder Woman Paradise Lost trade paperback. That's the classic Joe Kelly, DeMatteis story with Phil Jimenez and George Perez on art. And then there's Superman Son of Kal-El, volume number 3, which collects issues 11 through 15 to finish out that series. And that's a hardcover for the Kal-El book. Also, the new Champion of Shazam also has a hardcover, which collects the 4 issues of that series, written by Josie Campbell, Doc Shaner art, which was, or I'm sorry, not Doc Shaner art. Caitlin Yarsky did the art for that, did a fantastic job. So if you're curious about those, check them out. That does it for, I was going to mention the other single issues that we didn't cover. Looney Tunes number 272, Batman The Adventures Continue, Season 3, issue number 5, Batman Scooby-Doo Mysteries number 8. And then Rocky mentioned Multiversity Harley scoops up to DCU. I just don't have it in me to read the Zany Harley anymore. But give us your pick for book of the week.
Well, I feel we might have the same one, so I'll let you go first. I think I won first last time.
Yeah, I mean, listen, there are a lot of great books. Danger Street, could have picked that. Loved this issue of Superman Lost. Stargirl ended up on a really positive note. But I can't not pick Green Lantern. I can't not pick Green Lantern. It was so fun. I totally trust Jeremy Adams. He's somebody who's writing and aesthetic and love for the DC universe I've come to believe in and trust implicitly. So again, I knew this was going to be good. I didn't have any doubts. And yet he still surprised me. He still surpassed my expectations. He still had me smiling and enjoying and remembering why I love Hal Jordan, why Hal Jordan is my favorite Green Lantern. So again, the other books are deserving. Stargirl, as I said, ended on a high note. Really, really enjoyed Superman Lost. Incredible art. But Green Lantern, again, what Jeremy Adams did, the art by Zermanico, I loved it. It was so fantastic. Yeah, really, really good.
I agree 100%. I echo your sentiments. Green Lantern number 1, hands down. Nothing came close to it, quite frankly, this week for me. Although if I had to give a runner-up, I would go to Batman White Knight Presents Generation Joker, because I thought it was a lot of fun with an AI Joker taking his kids on a road trip to get to know him better. I thought that was it's a nice premise, and I'm looking forward to it, especially learning more about Agent Diana Prince and John Stewart that are promised to be in subsequent issues. So overall, those 2 issues between Green Lantern and Batman White Knight Generation Joker, I thought it was a good week.
Yeah, really strong week. I don't think anything in my mind was bad. So yeah, really strong week. All right, that's going to do it for this episode. Everybody, be sure you go out and pick up Green Lantern. Participating stores should have a Green Lantern ring when you go and pick up issue 1, so be sure you grab that. Don't forget to subscribe to Rocky's channel on YouTube if you're listening to us audio only or you haven't yet subscribed for some reason. You know what to do when it comes to YouTube. Ring the notification bell, subscribe, like this video, leave comments. We really enjoy interacting with people in the comment section. Conversely, if you always check us out on YouTube and you want to listen to some of the other audio-only content from the Comic Source channel, then just go to wherever you get your podcasts, do a search for the Comic Source and subscribe. Had a great chat last week with the Bad Idea crew. They're currently running their Kickstarter for Megalith, which you want to talk about amazing art. Oh my God, this might be the greatest comic book art I've ever seen. And it's Louis LaRosa. It's written by Matt Kindt. It's a fantastic story. Go check out the Kickstarter. Go listen to the episode. Guys give a lot of behind the scenes. Been working on it for a long, long time, and that's one of the special things that Bad Idea does. They give the artist, they give the writer the time they need and the number of pages they need to tell the story that they want to tell. There's not this worry about a monthly deadline. There's not an arbitrary number of pages they have to limit the story to, and it ends up that's how you get your best stories. So I have a feeling that Megalith is going to be a book that is evergreen as well. So anything to add, Rocky?
No, just I'm. You got me into Megalith. I still have to choose my tier yet, and I know that they're selling out quick there on the Bad Idea Kickstarter site. So, but I'm still decided. Hopefully, in the next few days, I'll pull the trigger on one of those tiers.
Yeah, 100%. Things will sell out. They will not come back. There are plenty of exclusives on the campaign. So that's going to do it for this episode, everybody. We appreciate you joining us as always, and we'll talk to you next time.
Catch you later.